So I came across this YouTube video that had a really nice title sequence to it, and with a little bit of digging, I found out it was made by Mograph, who uses After Effects. I went ahead and replicated it inside of DaVinci, and I'll be taking you on a step-by-step process, all the way from finding assets to setting out your scene, and finally animating. Welcome to this channel's first episode of Mograph Monday. Okay, so in the description, I've put links to 2 assets that you can download. Once you've imported them into your timeline, we're going to go ahead and duplicate them twice. So altogether, we should have 3 each, like so. We're going to go ahead and focus on this first one here, and we're going to allocate each of the duplications to each part of the image. So going over into this first duplication here, we're going to go ahead and just select our clip here, and we're just going to go ahead and cut Albert out from our image here. If you haven't used the polygon node before, you can left click here to make selections, and then you can use these to tweak your curve. If you go ahead and make another selection here, and you say you click this middle part here and move it around, it selects both of them. As you can see, our original and the one we place is moving as well. If you want to isolate just this line here, go ahead and click and hold Control, and then just shift it to your desired point. And basically, I'm just going to go around and do that for all of our clip here. Okay, so once I've done making my selection here and I'm happy with the result it's giving me, I'm going to go ahead back into the edit page and deselect this one, and we're going to go into the asset above, and we're going to isolate just the text here. We're going to do this by adjusting the luminance value. So we're just going to go and select our clip here, hit shift space and type in Luma here, and then add that into our clip. And as you can see here, it's already affecting the luminance values of our image. We're just going to go ahead and just click invert here. And then we're going to play around with our low and high values until the text here is selected. To see a little bit more clearly, I'm going to select the background here and just pipe that into the mask input so we can just get a better image here. So then when I go back and just play around with the low and high values a little bit more. Okay, so once you're happy with what you have here, we're going to go ahead now and cut out the actual picture so we can get just the text. I'm going to do this by using a polygon node again. I'm going to just uncheck this diamond, go ahead and hit invert and make our selection. Okay, so as you can see now, there's a huge black box. Instead, we want just the text. So we're going to go ahead now and merge this onto a background, and then connect this up to the Luma here, and then change the background to white. And as you can see, that removes the image. And basically why that worked is by cutting this out and replacing it to be white in the center. It just based the luminance values of that. And since we removed pretty much all white from our image, it removed the background as well. We can actually go ahead now and go back into the edit page. We're going to deselect this, and we're going to go into our last image here of our first scene, and we're going to go ahead and isolate just the background here. So again, we're going to use a polygon node here. We're going to deselect the diamond, and we're just going to isolate the image here. Okay, once this is done like so, you could actually go ahead and right click here and hit save image, and then go ahead and save it in whatever file type you want. And you could open it up in Photoshop and use the generate fill element and just remove Albert here from the background. I actually don't have Photoshop, so I'm going to show you a way to do this inside of DaVinci. I'm going to go ahead and select our clip here, and I'm just going to add the paint node. I'm going to go over into our third paintbrush here and just select that, and then into apply controls, I'm just going to hit the clone tool. And what the clone tool does is exactly the same thing as in Photoshop actually. If you go ahead and just hold Alt and hold a section here, and then paint over your desired section, it basically clones what you see here on the X. So if I go over into brush controls and I increase the size as well as the softness a little bit here, and we're just going to go ahead and just do that. We're going to hold Alt, click our desired point, and we're just going to take our time and just clone over this entire image. Okay, so once you have something you're happy with, something like this, I'm actually going to go ahead now and merge this on top of a background here and decreasing the alpha. And then we're going to go over into image and set our resolution at 1920 by 1080. And then I'm going to go ahead and just merge this here and view our full image. And we're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing. So I'm going to add a paint node here, going over into our third control, and then just hitting the clone tool here, just changing my brush. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the outside of the image. We're just going to extend it by quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and select our tool here, and I'm just going to paint over our image like so. And once you're happy with your image here, I'm actually going to go back into our page, and I'm just going to go ahead and make this a compound clip here. Go ahead and give it an appropriate name. I'm just going to go ahead and just name this 1. Hit create, deselect this, and of course select this here, which was our text here. We're going to go ahead now and just do the same thing, compound. I'm going to name this 2. Go ahead and select this one, and I'm going to name this 3. Okay, so once we have our assets prepared for the first scene, we don't need this here anymore. We're just going to go ahead and delete that and work on our second scene. Okay, so going over and looking at the reference here, I can immediately tell that, of course, Albert is separated from the background, like in our first scene, but also there's a little bit of parallax here with his arm that is a little bit different from the main body here. And what that's telling me is that his arm and the desk is cut out in a separate layer from his body here. So that's actually what we're gonna go ahead and do. So like before here in our original image, we're gonna go into the fusion page. We're gonna go ahead and select the polygon node, deselect the diamond here. And like said before, I'm just gonna go over and just cut out Albert from the background here. Okay, so once we have our main silhouette cut out here, we're gonna go ahead and remove these spaces in between his arms here and the desk and the lamp. So some people might get caught up on how to do this inside of Fusion. I'm gonna go ahead and just add another polygon node here. Of course, deselecting the triangle and then just mask out the shapes like so. I'm just gonna do a rough mask here. And then once we're happy, we're gonna go over into merge here and just hit subtract. So then now that takes away from the original image, and we're gonna do the exact same thing for this one over here. So yeah, once we've gone ahead and masked that out, we go ahead and just hit subtract. And like so, it cuts out from the original image. I'm gonna go ahead and copy our polygon nodes here. And then I'm just gonna go into the clip above, or the asset above, sorry. And I'm just gonna go ahead and paste it into the mask input like so. And then I'm gonna grab in another polygon node here. And we're gonna go ahead and just isolate his arm here and the desk. So like so, I'm just gonna start from here, going around and masking the image. Okay, so once this is done like so, I'm gonna go and hit invert here. And then of course, change it from merge to subtract. So then now we just get his desk and his arm isolated here. I'm gonna go ahead and copy our first 3 nodes like so. And I'm gonna go into the top and final clip here, or asset again, sorry. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and paste that in like so. I'm gonna go ahead and select this first polygon node here and just hit invert. Inside of this one, I'm gonna go ahead and bring this back into merge like so. And I'm gonna do the same thing for the last one here. And like before, you can go ahead and actually go into Photoshop and use the generate tool. But again, we're going to use the paint node like I explained before. Okay, so when you have something that you're happy with using the paint node here, I did actually go ahead and not continue masking out the image, because as we remembered, Albert is actually going to be here inside of the clip. So basically all I'm saying is mask out or paint over the important parts of the image. Okay, so going over into the edit page here, like so, we're gonna go ahead and compound clip them. I'm gonna name this 4. And like explained before, I'm just gonna go ahead and delete those. And inside of a Fusion clip here, we're gonna go ahead and build out our scene. So when you've gone ahead and imported all of your assets here, like so, we're gonna go ahead and start building everything out. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and just reconstruct the image here by adding a background. Just gonna move this around. And then with the text, I'm actually gonna go ahead and merge it again onto another background. I'm gonna make this white, and I'm actually gonna go ahead and view our image like so. So first thing I can quickly tell is that this line here wasn't cut out. So by using a polygon node, again, deselecting the diamond, we're gonna go ahead and just cut out all the unnecessary bits of the image here like so, and then just hit invert. And that looks like a way cleaner image. Using our original image here like so, I'm gonna go ahead and actually merge this on top, so we can use this as reference to where our box is gonna appear. I'm gonna go ahead and just scale this up. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add a polygon node here. And then whilst viewing our merge 3, which is the picture merged on top of our background, I'm gonna go ahead and just cut out our box like so. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and deselect our diamond here, and then removing our image here, connecting this into the background and just hitting invert. We have the base for our image here, which is looking nice and good. Bringing this to the bottom here, and then bringing our background and our main subject. We're gonna go ahead and just attach them like so. The background goes in here, and then our subject goes in like so. Just gonna go ahead and resize our background here so it fits all of the image here in the background. And I think I'm happy with the way that looks. Just gonna go ahead and actually tweak this so he's in the middle a little bit. And yeah, I think I'm happy with the way that looks. We can actually now go ahead and convert this into 3D layers by deselecting our skeleton here and just building out our 3D scene like so. We're going to go ahead and optimize playback a little bit. I'm going to go over into render type here. And depending on your hardware, I'm just going to go and change this to hardware renderer because it's just a little bit better for me. We're going to go over into anti-aliasing presets. and then go ahead and just change the high Q rate all the way to 1, closing that tab here, and then right clicking over into the playback here. We're going to go ahead and deselect high quality as well as motion blur. And because I'm in 18.6, I'm not sure if this is in the latest version of DaVinci. We're going to go over into the 0 here in our playback, right click, and then I'm going to change this to 4, just right clicking here and just turning on proxy. And basically what that does is it downscales the playback quality of our image like so. You can see this is like all pixelated. If I just change this back to 1, it returns back into its original resolution. And that just helps with playback a little bit. You can choose to leave this on or off, but for me, I'm just going to go ahead and leave this at 1. And then whilst I go through my playback, I'm going to go ahead and just adjust this. All right, let's go ahead and build out the skeleton here. I'm going to go ahead and actually make this a group like so, just to free up a little bit more space. I'm going to go ahead and just split the viewer, making this into the first tab and then this into the second one, pulling back our camera here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and just scale this up by 2 like so. Let's push it back a little bit more. And I'm just going to add our second one here by copying this image plane and just piping this into the main. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and pull this back here like so. I think that's all right. And I'm going to go ahead and increase the size. And I think that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to make this a little bit neater and do the exact same thing for the final one. Copy the image plane, piping that in, and then adding this into our timeline. And again, pushing this further back too. I'm just going to raise this up and increase the size like so. And I'm actually going to go ahead and pull the camera way back like so. Again, so looking at the original here, it starts off pretty zoomed out without showing any of the borders here. So then going back into the original here and just viewing our image, you can see that although it's quite zoomed out, which is what we want, our border here isn't filling the full screen. So going into our first group here, I'm going to go over to the image plane and just increasing that like so. So it fills up all of our screen, and then adjust the controls. So going over into our text here, adding a transform and just scaling that down. And then I'll do the same thing for our box here. So by moving the camera around here, you can see that we get that nice parallax effect here seen in the original video. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and build out our second scene using these 3 assets here that we made earlier. And I'm just going to go ahead and merge this on top of a merge like so, and then going ahead and connecting this into our original merge, and then going ahead and just pushing that back like so. And viewing the 3D space here, what you might tell is that your playback might be affected. And I think it's due to the paint node that we used inside of our compound clip here. So to compound that, we're going to go ahead and right click here, click save image, name it whatever you want to name it, and then saving it as either PNG or JPEG. I'm just going to go ahead and hit JPEG. I'm going to hit save, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag this into our scene here and just replace that like so. So then we get this. Now, because I saved it as a JPEG, it didn't export the alpha channel as well. So this is why the background here is black. But if you want the alpha to be exported as well, go ahead and just save it as a PNG, which is something I did earlier, and then just connecting that over into our scene, and there you go. You get your alpha channel as well. So then now your playback should be a little bit better. And to go ahead and actually see what we're going to be building out here. So we're going to go ahead and actually deselect this here, and we're going to go focus on our camera movement. I'm going to go into camera here, go into the transform, scale this back a little bit so it's zoomed out. We're going to go ahead and place a keyframe on the first one here on our Z axis here, and then going over into frame 75, I'm just going to place a keyframe here and then just scale that in like so. Now you might be wondering why I didn't just scale it so the white borders disappear. The reason I'm doing this is because I believe is because in the original here, it scales to a point and then it stops, but the borders here keep moving. And I know this because of the parallax inside of the original image here. It doesn't really match the movement of the white borders that swipe across. So from what I can tell, it kind of stops here, and then he altered the mask of the box that we made earlier to scale outwards. So we're going to go ahead and replicate that inside of our composition here. And based on the camera movement, we're going to alter our transform, and we're going to go ahead and make an S curve here. So then now for playback, I'm going to go ahead and change this to 3 just for smoother playback. And I'm just going to go ahead and view this to see if I like the way it's looking. Based on that, I think I'm just going to go and tweak this to make it more of a harsher zoom, and I'm going to make it a little bit later like so. So in the original, the frame rate looks like it's been dropped by quite a bit. So we're going to go ahead and replicate that look by adding a posterized time. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add this after the renderer, and then I'm going to go ahead and change it from 24 to 10. So then when viewing this, you can see that we get that nice low frame rate here. Okay, going back into the Fusion page here, I'm going to go ahead and deselect this just to save on playback here. And we're going to go ahead and work on the camera movement a little bit more. So in the reference here, you can sort of see that the camera looks like it's sort of handheld, which helps accentuate that parallax a little bit more. So we're going to go ahead and replicate that by using expressions. I'm going to go ahead and select our camera here, hitting shift space and just typing transform and then adding the 3D transform into our scene. I'm going to go ahead and right click our X value here, going over into modifiers and then just click shake here. And as you can see from the playback here, it gives it that handheld look, but obviously this doesn't look good at all. So we're going to go ahead and tweak it to something a little bit more presentable. So selecting our node here, going over into modifiers and decreasing the maximum to something like so. And then going back over into tools and doing the same thing for the Y here. So modify with and then shake. Going over into modifiers and just decrease the maximum to something like so. And based off the values we inputted, this is the look that we're left with. I'm going to go ahead and tweak this a lot more. I went ahead and tweaked it. I changed the maximum as well as the smoothness here. And I did the same thing for both the scales. And by doing so, we're left with this look here, which I feel like is a little bit better. But as you can see, because of the changes we made, it's going unaltered our composition. So we're going to go ahead back into the Fusion page here, adding another transform like so, and then going ahead and using the X and Y scale. I'm just going to alter our position here. So we're left with something that looks like this. So as it then zooms in, we're going to go over into our polygon here, and then we're actually going to view this, and we're going to set a keyframe here. So placing this diamond, and then towards the end of the swipe, so around here, I'm going to place my diamond and then just altering the values like so. So it just goes completely over the screen. And I'm going to go ahead and tweak this by making it another S. And I think that should look good. I'm going to go ahead and tweak this slightly like so. And then viewing this with the posterized time, we get something that looks like this. And I think that looks pretty good so far. So we're actually going to go ahead now and start planning for the reveal into the second scene. So going back into our timeline here, and I'm actually going to place a marker here right around the 2-second mark. So something like here, and then just going to do one a little bit after. So here. So this marker will represent our initial subject here, and this one represents the background. Okay, so we're going to go and actually disconnect these like so, and then merge each of them on top of a background and deselecting the alpha. I'm gonna copy and paste this and then connecting them back into our clip like so. So then now this allows us just to play around with the blend like so. So opening the spline and selecting our first clip, going over into the marker here, and I'm gonna place a keyframe here on the blend, moving back one keyframe, placing another one, moving back to the original keyframe, and then making that 0. I'm going to repeat the same steps for our background here, but on the second marker like so. So placing a keyframe here, going back one frame, placing another keyframe, going back, and then making that 0. So then now this allows us to build out our second scene. So then now I'm just going to go ahead and separate our subjects. So the background here, I'm just going to move this back. Okay, so for this image plane here, I'm going to bring this forward like so. And what I can quickly tell is that I actually forgot to separate these properly. So going over into our subject here, we can see that this is compound 6. So going back into the edit page here, if we just go ahead and type in 6 like so, we can see this appears. If we right click and then open in timeline, and then I'm actually going to go ahead and type in 5 and then opening that in timeline again. So in our 5th timeline, go ahead and open this, taking this last polygon node here, going back into the edit page and then going into this timeline, and then I'm just going to add this into our comp like so, and then I'm just going to go ahead and hit subtract or invert, sorry. So then we're left with this. So then now when we go back into our main timeline and open up our Fusion page, we're left with the separation here. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you that. So yeah, both of these now are separated. Okay, so I went ahead and turned on proxy and auto proxy just for playback again. And I'm just going to go ahead and mess around with these values and scale them appropriately. Okay, so once we get something that looks like this, and this is what we have in our viewfinder here, I'm going to go ahead and make our last asset that we need for this scene, which in the original here is this bookshelf that's been cut out from the background. Going over into the timeline here and opening it in the Fusion page, you can see that it's probably selected from this bookshelf here, or maybe this one as well. So I did go ahead in the original image here. If I just deselect this, I went ahead and cut out this side of the bookshelf using our polygon node here and then went ahead and blurred that too, just to keep focus on our main side here. Adding that in and then changing our X scale so it appears behind our subject like so. I'm going to go ahead and view this and change the size as well. And I'm just going to go ahead, tweak this more and bring this down like so, increasing the size. So we can go ahead and tweak our scene, giving it more space in the middle here so we can get close to our original composition. Okay, so once you're happy with positioning and you've played it back a couple times and you're just liking the way everything looks, we're going to go ahead now and add one more movement to the camera. I'm going to select our camera here, going over into transform and then going right to the end here. I'm just going to place another keyframe and scale that in more like so. As I'm scaling this now and I'm realizing that I'm going to tweak the spacing of this a little bit more just to get a little bit more parallax. Okay, so once you're happy with your spacing here and you've played it back to see if everything looks good, we're going to go ahead and add one more keyframe to our camera here. So selecting camera, going all the way to the end here, placing a keyframe and then just scaling in. So viewing this without the posterized time, we should get something that looks like this, which looks fine for now. We'll actually go ahead and tweak things later on. So now we can go ahead and worry about making the paintbrush transition, which transitions into here nicely. Okay, so heading back into the Fusion page, we're going to go and actually make our own paintbrush swipe. So we're going to go ahead and pull in a background here and a rectangle mask here and just make the shape like so. We're going to go and select the background here, hitting shift space and just typing in displace and going ahead and just adding that into our comp. Bring in a fast noise here and just use these settings on screen like so. And then connecting this into our green input here and then going back into our displace. I'm going to change it from radial to X and Y. I'm going to descale my X refraction to something like this. And I'm going to increase my Y refraction to something like this. This looks pretty good to me. I'm going to go ahead back into our rectangle here and I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste that in. I'm going to change the merge type to subtract. I'm going to scale this to be bigger and longer than our original rectangle here and then move this like so. So now as you see, we've created our own paintbrush swipe. I'm actually just going to go ahead and make this a little bit smaller like so. And yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Viewing this in our second viewer, I'm going to go ahead and remove the opacity keyframe in the bend here. And I'm just going to go ahead and add this into our comp like so. And then viewing this like so. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add a transform. And we're just going to block out where we want this wipe to appear. So going back into our original clip here, you can see that there's 4 swipes here. You see one with the arm, another, that's 2, and then 3, and then the last one here. So we need 4 paintbrush swipes. So we're going to go back here and just shift this so it covers just the arm. I'm going to go ahead and actually group these here just for space. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, paste it here. Using the transform, I'm just going to go ahead and view this merge as well. Using the transform, and I'm just going to move that over. And I'm just going to go ahead and repeat those steps like so. So once this is done here, I can go ahead and start animating the swipes. So going over into our first group here and selecting our second rectangle, I'm going to go and place a keyframe here at frame 38 and then one here at 45. Going back into our first keyframe, I'm just going to have that start from here and then scale down to remove all of the swipes here. And then once this is scaled down, I'm going to go ahead and just repeat the steps for all of this. Okay, everything put together, we should have something that looks like this. So in order then to have this affected by the mask, I'm going to go ahead and just delete these merges here and then merge these on top of each other like so. And then now we can go ahead and pipe this into the mask input. So then when we view, we should get something that looks like this. If you're not happy with the speed, you could go ahead and just open your spline graph. I select all of them. I'm just gonna go ahead and close these groups here. And then if I just select time stretcher here, you're able to stretch out or just tighten the animation. If you want to go ahead and just move that around, you can select the shape box here, and then you can just go ahead and move that to wherever you would want to be. I'm going to leave that to where it is for now. I'm going to go ahead now and turn on my posterized time, and then viewing this in the edit page, we get something that looks like this. I'm just going to go ahead and tweak the paintbrush swipes to my desired output. Okay, so viewing this with the posterized time on after I've tweaked everything, we get something that looks like this, which I'm quite happy with. Okay, so now that animation is out the way, we can use the same principles here for the background. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and delete the keyframes, and then viewing our original clip, you can see here that the animation starts as the last paintbrush is swiping. So we're going to go ahead and replicate that. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull this down so we have a little bit more space to work with. And the thing I went ahead and change is, of course, the width, the fast noise here with these settings, and then of course the displacement here. So like I said before, I'm just going to re-add this rectangle back. So as you can see, it starts off here and then it swipes across like so. So looking at this now, and I'm happy with the way things look. So I'm going to go ahead and actually switch this then into our mask like so. So then when we play through, we get this animation, which looks pretty good. I went ahead and deleted this last keyframe that we made earlier, and going into our transform, the last one here, I'm going to place a keyframe right before our last keyframe ends. So something like here will do. I'm going to place a keyframe on our Z axis, going all the way to the end here, and then just scaling in. This just ensures a smoother camera look. So now we're starting to get very close to the original. So to make the halftone effect that comes after the swipe, we're going to use this as a base to build it off of. Just going ahead and view this here. I'm actually going to move this across and I'm going to pull in a background like so. I'm going to view this background and I'm going to bring in an ellipse. I'm going to go ahead and change the color here to white. And then in image, I'm going to uncheck auto resolution and make it 1920 by 1920. I'm going to go ahead and add this here and then just scale this up like so. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this background, paste it again. I changed it to black and then add that on top like so. I'm going to go ahead and add a transform, change the edges from canvas to wrap, and then scale this down. If I just view the transform, scale this down to something like 0.004. Okay, so once we have our pattern like this, I'm going to go ahead and change the angle to 30. Then I'm going to go ahead and just merge this onto a background. And then I'm going to go ahead and add another transform and just scale that down and view the transform like so. I'm going to go ahead and paste in a fast noise with these controls here and then pipe this into the mask input like so. I'm going to go ahead and actually merge this on top of a background and then decreasing the alpha. I'm going to add in a variable like so and then pipe this into the green arrow and then this one into the yellow. So viewing the variable like so, I'm going to decrease the blur size ever so slightly and then adding a brightness and contrast here and then doing it again over here. I'm just going to view our brightness and contrast here and I'm just going to add a invert color, add that in like so. I'm going to view this brightness and contrast in our second viewer. I'm going to take the lift and just crush it all the way down. I'm going to make the brightness negative 0.5. So then in our second contrast, we're going to go ahead and crush the blacks like so. So then we should get something that looks like this. I'm going to go ahead and add a luma here and then add that in so and just view that. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy this background here and then paste it and add this into the mask input. So we should get something that looks like this. I'm just going to go ahead and merge this on top of a background so you can see it a little bit better. So then going over into the previous animation we made here, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this actually, and I'm going to paste it here and then pipe this into the mask input like so. So then when we play back, we get that brush swipe on our halftones like so. Go ahead and decrease the alpha. And I'm going to go ahead and actually offset these animations here. So if I pull up the spline and just pipe this into our graph. So I'm actually going to go ahead and group these to make it a lot easier on myself here. And I'm going to go ahead and offset that animation like so. I'm going to go ahead and keep this tab open and I'm going to copy image plane here. Pipe this in and then add it to our main timeline if I can just find it here and then just view this into the viewer. So I'm going to go ahead and actually increase this Y scale here so it just appears on the top like so. And then watching this back, we get something that looks like this. So I went ahead and actually tweaked the controls like so. I went ahead and just changed the size of this a little bit more, and I also went ahead and changed our luma. I'm actually going to go ahead in our fast noise here and add an ellipse. And I'm just going to scale this down like so. And I'm going to have it above Albert's face like so. And then I'm just going to soften the edge and then just add this into our mask input like so. As you can see, it does change a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and make this a little bit smaller and make sure it appears over his face. I'm going to invert and soften the edge like so. So his face is visible. And that's pretty much it for the paintbrush animation there. We're going to go over into the text animation here that appears as it's zooming in. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and open another timeline here by just clicking on the plus. If you don't have this option selected, just go ahead and click this icon here and then select your timelines like so. I'm going to go ahead and pull in a fusion composition and then open this inside of the fusion page. I set up my composition like this. I used this text here with this font and positioned it where I want it to be. Same thing for the last text here. And I went ahead and used the exact same technique with this signature here that we used for the text in the original comp, and then went and added that in and moved it in place. Lastly, for the text, I went ahead and animated the write on. As you can see here, I placed a keyframe in the beginning here, and then it sort of just writes on. Okay, so for the signature animation, I'm going to go ahead and actually just isolate this. I'm going to go ahead and break down the write on animation. Go ahead and make more space like so. Add in a background and just merging this onto the background and decreasing the alpha. Viewing this onto the merge, I'm going to go ahead and grab in a polygon node here and deselecting the diamond like so. And I'm going to go ahead and mask out this A here. I'm going to go ahead and just do this quickly like so. And then connect this into the mask input of the merge like so. This disappears, don't worry. We're going to go ahead and increase the border width so that it reappears, and then we're going to change the value of the length here. So as you can see, as we change the value of the length, it sort of writes on like so. We're then going to go ahead and pull this and then merge this on top. I'm going to view this merge, and then I'm going to do the same for the rest of the signature. So adding a polygon node here, deselecting the diamond, and then just going ahead and masking this out. And then once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and connect this into the mask again, and then increasing the border width. And then when we play around with our length here, we get a write-on effect that looks like this. So then just go ahead and repeat this for all of the signature here. So once that's done, we should get an animation that looks like this. Nice and smooth. Okay, so looking onto the original here, we can see that we have this sort of RGB effect that comes with the write-on. Now, I found a way to replicate this. I'm not sure if there's an easier way of doing it, but I'll show you how I went and did it. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate with this text here. I'm going to deselect this from our main and merge this on top of a background and deselecting the alpha. I'm going to add a duplicate node and then changing the time offset to 2. I'm going to go ahead and bring in another background like so and merging this on top, and then decreasing the alpha of the background. I'm going to merge this again 2 more times. I'm going to bring this up, and then I'm just going to separate the RGB channels. So clicking this merge here, going over into settings and deselecting blue and green. In this middle one here, going over into settings and deselecting blue and red. And then in this last one here, going over to settings and deselecting green and red. I'm going to go back into our red channel here, going over into merge, and then just adding a shake modifier, going over into modifiers like so, and then changing the smoothness to 2.56. Going over into our second one here, and go back into the merge and set a modifier again, shake, going over into modifiers. I'm going to make the smoothness 2.17. Going over into this last one, doing the same thing again, and I'm going to make this 5.51. When viewing this merge, we get this. I'm going to go ahead now and bring in another background and changing the alpha to 0, bringing this, merging that on top, and then I'm going to merge our original on top of that, and then I'm just going to go ahead and view this merge. So we get this. If I zoom in all the way, you can see that the RGB background is still kind of bleeding in. So to do that, we're going to go to where the animation stops. And then I'm going to go over into this merge here and place a keyframe on the blend, and then going back a frame, placing a keyframe there, and then just decreasing the value all the way to 0. So then now we don't get that bleeding. So then I'm just going to duplicate this exact same technique for both of our assets here. We're going to go ahead and add a little bit more variance here, as we want the colors here to be a little bit different. So I'm going to go over into the modifiers here, and just changing the smoothness ever so slightly so we get a little bit more variance when the colors appear. So once everything works, we should get something that looks like this. Go ahead and compound clip this and then bring this into our main timeline like so, and then bring this into our composition. And then viewing our 3D space here, I'm just going to go ahead and merge this on top of our subject, viewing this in the media out. Just going to move back, adding a transform. And then I'm just going to scale this to where I believe it should be. And then going ahead and viewing our animation here, we're going to go right to where the swipe happens. So right about here. And then going over into our media, I'm going to change the globe in and out to appear on the keyframe that we're on, which is 58 like so. So once played back, we should get something that looks like this. Okay, so looking back at the original animation here, you can see that there's a lot of dust particles that float around the screen, and we're going to go ahead and actually duplicate that by using P emitter. So going over into our Fusion tab here, we're going to go ahead and bring in a background, and we're going to just view this background here. We're going to bring in an ellipse. I'm going to make this background white, and we're going to go ahead and decrease the size like so. We're going to soft edge it, and we're actually going to bring down the level. I'm going to select this and type in P emitter, adding that into our comp. Shift space again and type in P render, adding that in. Going over into our P emitter here, we're going to go over into style, and changing the style to bitmap. So then we have this input that appears, and we are able to input that in. Going over into region, I'm going to change it from sphere to cube, and then I'm just going to bring these values up. I'm actually going to make this 3, make this one 2, and then the depth something like so. Going back, I'm going to change our controls, putting a keyframe on number or 0 here, then going into our face keyframe, putting a keyframe down, and then changing this to 0. And then when merging this into our main comp and then viewing our main comp like so, going over into the P emitter, just changing our values here. In our P emitter here, we're going to go over into style, pull down the size controls. I'm going to pull down the size like so, and then just bring up the size variance. And I'm actually going to feather the edge a little bit more, and then bring down the value, and then changing the P emitter, going over into controls here. Instead of 10, I'm going to make this 40. So we should get something that looks like this. I'm actually going to go ahead and decrease the level quite a bit more, so it's a lot more subtle. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in a P turbulence. And then if you aren't happy with the orientation of the particles, you can just go ahead and click reseed a bunch of times and it will change the orientation. I actually think this one looks a little bit better. And then in the P emitter, make sure to change your lifespan to the maximum. I added this color and decreased the alpha to give this CC to the image here, because I didn't want to go back into the individual asset and change the color. So I thought this was the best option to take. So I went ahead and added this color here, merged it on top of a background, and then going over into the merge and decreasing the blend. Okay, so for the final camera animation, we're going to go ahead and add another transform, and then going over into the original clip here, it sort of moves over to the right here to reveal more of the text, I guess. So that's what we're going to use the transform for. We're going to go ahead and place a keyframe here at 72, and then going one and placing that at 98. And we're just going to move the X scale to the right here. And because of that, you can see the background here is being exposed. So I'm just going to go ahead and change the value, so it's a little bit more hidden like so. I'm going to go ahead and just tweak this animation like so. This is what we have so far, which is not bad at all. Okay, we're almost done. I'm going to go ahead and add in adjustment clip to the top of this and just match the size like so. And then inside of this adjustment clip, I'm going to go ahead and add in flicker addition, change the range to 0.102. and then change the speed to 0.799. And then underneath that, we're going to go over into effects and hit template, and then just switching up chromatic aberration, and then going ahead and dragging that and adding it into our clip. Looking at the original here, again, once more, we can see that there's a texture that is appearing on the top of our image here. So I went and downloaded this cardboard texture here using a luma keyer. I'm just going to luma this out, and then I'm going to add a transform here, going over into angle, right clicking, and then hitting expression. And then I'm just going to copy and paste this expression, which you can find in the description. And basically what this expression is telling us is that on every frame, rotate a random amount from 0 to 360. So if I go ahead and flick through each frame here, you can tell that it is rotating at different angles. I'm actually going to go ahead and bring this, copy this, paste it here, and then just ungroup it. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and merge this onto this background here. And then I'm going to use this to mask it out. And then I'm actually going to change this to black here by piping this into a black background. And then I'm probably going to go ahead and now deselect the alpha a little bit. So in Played, we get this nice little texture effect. Of course, this isn't the exact same asset that he used, so this texture does not look the same, but I'm going ahead and showing you the principles of how you would go ahead and apply an effect like that. In the original here, we can see that the border of this image here is a little bit concaved and distorted. The way we can do that is by using the bend node, which I'm going to go ahead and show you now. If we go over into our clip here, if I just hit shift space and type in dent, select the second one here, going over, I'm going to change this from type 1 to type 2, connecting this in and scaling this up like so. And then I'm just going to push this in, so we can go ahead and see that this has a tiny bit of a bend to it. And then the last thing you can do to complete this composition is by adding in a couple of film burns like so and really play around with the look. For example, here I changed this to color dodge. I'm just going to play around with the opacity. But yeah, this is completely up to you. You can go as crazy as you want with the film burns. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and hopefully what I've talked about here could help you in future compositions. If you want to see more videos like this, please make sure to tell me in the comment section, drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.